For most people, Noah's Ark is a harmless story, a children's illustration, a floating zoo painted in bright colors, something gentle, something safe. But Ron Wyatt didn't see Noah's Ark that way. To him, the Ark was not a symbol of hope. It was a tombstone, a reminder that an entire world once existed and was erased. And toward the end of his life, Ron Wyatt became deeply troubled by what that really meant. Ron Wyatt was not an archaeologist by training. He didn't wear the robes of academia or speak in polished lectures. He was an ordinary man with an extraordinary obsession with the Bible. He believed Scripture was not metaphor, not allegory, not spiritual poetry, but history written by eyewitnesses who survived catastrophe. And because he believed that, he did something most people never dare to do. He went looking for proof. Not proof to impress people, not proof to build fame, but proof to answer a question that haunted him. Why did God flood the world? Ron didn't believe the flood was a myth borrowed from ancient cultures. In fact, what disturbed him was the opposite. Civilizations separated by oceans and centuries all told the same story. A great flood, divine judgment, a chosen survivor, a vessel of escape. That kind of agreement doesn't happen by coincidence. So Ron followed the Bible's description. He followed the measurements. He followed the geography. And eventually, he found himself in the mountains of eastern Turkey, staring at something that would change his life forever. A massive, ship-shaped formation embedded in the earth. Too symmetrical to be natural, too precise to be random, too large to ignore. Its length matched the biblical measurements of Noah's Ark with unsettling accuracy. Ron didn't shout. He didn't celebrate. He stood in silence. Because if this was truly the Ark, then the flood was not a story. It was a crime scene. Ron claimed radar scans revealed metal-like rib structures beneath the surface. He pointed to massive anchor stones scattered miles away. Stones ancient cultures carved with strange markings, far too heavy to serve any ordinary purpose. He spoke of petrified wood, iron deposits where nails should never exist naturally, and evidence suggesting this structure was once hollow, then slowly filled with mud and stone as waters receded. But the physical evidence, as shocking as it was, wasn't what disturbed Ron the most. It was the realization of what had been lost. According to Genesis, the world before the flood was violent, corrupted, filled with wickedness so deep that God regretted creating humanity. And Ron believed that description was understated. He believed the ancient world was advanced. Not spiritually advanced, technologically, socially, and scientifically advanced. And that terrified him, because if the ancient world had reached heights we no longer remember, then the flood wasn't punishment for ignorance. It was judgment for rebellion. Ron began studying ancient texts alongside Scripture. He noticed something scholars rarely discuss openly. Many ancient civilizations spoke of beings who were not fully human, of forbidden knowledge, of boundaries crossed between heaven and earth. Genesis mentions it briefly, almost casually, but Ron believed that single passage held the key to understanding why the flood was necessary. Something had gone wrong. Something had contaminated humanity to the point where preservation was impossible. Except for one man, Noah. And even Noah wasn't chosen because he was brilliant, powerful, or influential. He was chosen because he was obedient. That detail mattered deeply to Ron, because obedience suggests instruction, and instruction suggests warning. Ron believed Noah didn't just build a boat. He built a line God refused to let humanity cross again. As Ron grew older, his tone changed. Early on, he spoke with excitement about discoveries. Later, he spoke with heaviness, with urgency, with caution. He reportedly told people close to him that modern society was moving dangerously close to the same mindset that existed before the flood. A belief that knowledge equals wisdom, that power justifies experimentation, that limits are meant to be broken. Ron believed the ancient world crossed boundaries God set for creation itself. And God responded not with correction, but with reset. That realization haunted him, because resets don't happen when small mistakes are made. They happen when something becomes unfixable. Ron stopped presenting the Ark as proof of Scripture and started seeing it as proof of restraint. Proof that God once said, "Enough." And the most unsettling thought he carried toward the end of his life was this: what if the flood was not God's last warning, but his first? Ron Wyatt never publicly detailed exactly what he believed humanity had done before the flood. But those who listened carefully heard him say the same thing repeatedly. If people truly understood why the flood happened, they wouldn't see it as ancient history. They'd see it as a mirror. That statement alone should make you uncomfortable, because mirrors don't accuse the past. They reflect the present. Ron believed Noah's Ark still stands in the mountains not to prove the Bible to skeptics, but to warn future generations that survival does not come from intelligence, but obedience. The Ark was not advanced technology. It was a simple structure built by a man who trusted God when the world laughed at him. And the world drowned. Toward the end of his life, Ron became less concerned with whether people believed his discoveries and more concerned with whether they understood the message behind them. He believed humanity was once again playing with forces it didn't fully understand. Rewriting creation, manipulating life, crossing lines once considered sacred. And just like before the flood, people laughed. They called warnings superstition. They called caution ignorance. They called faith outdated. Until rain began to fall. Ron Wyatt died without seeing the world accept his warnings. And maybe that was always the case, because Noah preached for years and was ignored too. The Ark didn't convince people to change. It only saved those who listened. So the real question isn't whether Ron Wyatt found Noah's Arkansas. The real question is this: if the Ark is real, if the flood is history, if judgment once came when humanity crossed certain boundaries, are we listening this time? Or are we too busy arguing about proof while repeating the same mistakes? If the story unsettled you, that's not a coincidence. Truth often does. If it stirred something inside you, share this message so others can wrestle with it too. Because the stories told here are not meant to comfort you, they are meant to wake you up. Until next time, stay humble, stay watchful, and remember, the Ark was never about animals. It was about survival.